I told USArk Florida, I said, hey, are we going to talk about this? Because this is what not to do. This is how all this other shit starts. You know what they said? They said, oh, we're not talking about that because the story seems sketchy. I'm like, how the fuck does it seem sketchy?
And that's not an appropriate thing to do. And that's USArk's kind of role within our hobby, is making sure that the laws are appropriate, that the laws are fair, and allow us to reasonably keep these animals legally.
Did everybody get the notification?
Yes.
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 All
Be
right,
good.
And I accept that you're recording me.
Oh, that's a plus. I wish I could have said no, but that's all right. All right, so I'm going to do the intro. Welcome, everybody, to the Reptile Studio Podcast. I'm Greg from the Reptile Studio Instagram and also YouTube, although that's Reptile Studio Pod. And my co-host is Brian. Hi, Brian. Where are you from, Brian?
I am from Hudson Valley Reptile and Rescue.
Sounds gross.
And I co-host the Reptile Studio Podcast.
Sweet. And we have two guests today. Our first guest is Chuckey from MadBio Reptiles on Instagram. And anything else besides Insta?
So I am on YouTube as the Wild Floridians as well. MadBio Reptiles on YouTube as well, and everywhere else, honestly, is usually MadBio Reptiles.
All right. And our other guest is Bill Stewart, who we've had on before, so we don't need to introduce him. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So Bill, go ahead. Where are you from? What do you do? Say it.
I'm Bill Stewart. I own WPS Reptiles in Kenosha. I do reptile education in my local community. I am also the executive director for the Madison Area Herpetological Society. I am on the board for the Badgerland Reptile Rescue in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I work at Zilla, the brand that makes reptile caging and supplies and stuff. And I act as kind of a brand support and work with the R&D team there.
Sweet. So I had the idea that I wanted to do a podcast about USArk. Because I am a member of USArk. I have the bronze thing, which I signed up like years ago. I think it was years ago. Feels like years ago. I signed up at the point when like the states, different states and stuff were really like hammering hard on, legislation. Now I know, like, personally, when it comes to like being members of things, I usually do a ton of research. And I also am actually involved in the organizations. And those organizations in the past have made it easy to get involved. And so with that being said, Bill, one of the things that I think about a lot is, and I look back on the website today, and there's nothing on there that says, get involved. There's no outreach on their website, which is one of the things for me that keeps me sort of hanging in the balance when it comes to being a member, is the outreach. And I was wondering if you had any insight on that.
Afraid that I don't.
Yeah.
I follow USArk on social media, and they post some action alerts and notifications about things happening in different states on Facebook. I confess that I haven't been on the website in a very long time. But you saying that there seems to be less activity on the website is definitely something I could tell Phil and Vanessa and them. But I actually haven't checked out the website in a long time, so I apologize for not having an answer. I stay active with them on Facebook, and that's where I see most of the information.
Yeah. And I know. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What would getting involved mean? Like, what what would you want to get involved in within that organization?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so
That's a very good question. I think that's the number one question. And because you hear a lot of reptile people say that you have to get involved, you have to get involved, you have to get involved. And USArk does a lot. You know, you'll see a lot of it very openly at reptile shows, and a lot of reptile breeders and will advertise that they're supporters. And I think there was a little phase in social media where people were getting a little carried away with like, you better support it or else, whatever. And I don't like that mentality. But it's what Phil and in USArk are doing is they are monitoring the laws and ordinances within all 50 states and trying to be very proactive in noticing any laws or ordinances that pop up that could affect our hobby. The Lacey Act is the big one. The Lacey Act that popped up, I want to say that was 2014 or 2015, that it popped back up. And USArk was able to successfully kind of remove the pythons from the Lacey Act. If that act had went through, you wouldn't be able to transport those certain species across state lines, which might not sound like a big deal to some people. Someone who's like, yeah, I have 3 leopard geckos, Burmese and reticulated pythons don't affect me. But a lot of people have Burmese and reticulated pythons as pets, and work could transfer them to another office in a different state. Military people who are involved in the military who need to move or whatever, you wouldn't be allowed to take your pet with. And the ramifications and how it would have impacted breeders and hobbyists within the NARBC shows. You wouldn't be able to travel to a different show out of state with your animal. And so, I mean, it's the reaches are even beyond that. But USArk was able to successfully kind of stop that law from passing. And there are subtle, ordinances and laws that get passed in different states and in different cities that could have a profound impact on us keeping these animals legally in the hobby. And so that's USArk's role. Let's monitor the ordinances in different states, the laws in different states, make sure that those laws are appropriate, make sure that those laws are knowledgeable in their understanding of these animals and the care that they have. We all know in the hobby that reptiles are still rather vilified and misunderstood. People don't understand them. People are afraid of them still. And unfortunately, a lot of times that fear of snakes or that fear of reptiles governs people creating laws in states and in ordinances within villages and municipalities. And we're going to ban snakes in my city because I'm on the board and I'm afraid of snakes. And that's not an appropriate thing to do. Villages and municipalities, and we're going to ban snakes in my city because I'm on the board and I'm afraid of snakes. And that's not an appropriate thing to do. And that's USArk's kind of role within our hobby, is making sure that the laws are appropriate, that the laws are fair, and allow us to reasonably keep these animals legally.
So Chuckey, to answer kind of your question as far as like what I want to get involved with. So like I've been, members of other various organizations over the years. And part of that is like the ability to like start a chapter. So like say the, Connecticut chapter of, or the Central Connecticut, which is where I am, the Central Connecticut chapter of USArk, so to be able to actually be, sort of be like a boots on the ground type of situation where there's some, what's the word, when you have the ability to be,
present,
like come up with, autonomous, to have like a little, a bit of autonomy, depending on, your local area. So if I were to, want to start a chapter of USArk, in Connecticut, to be able to focus on Connecticut and build, sort of like a grassroots sort of movement around legislation in Connecticut, that's something that I would be interested in, like I have done in other organizations that I've been members of. and that's my big concern. Is not my big concern. That's one of my concerns. Is there's seems to be no ability to do that other than going to a reptile expo, like Bill said, and volunteering your time there. Where does it go beyond that? And that's sort of my point when it comes to getting involved. And I know you and I, Chuckey, have had conversations. I had a conversation about this, and unfortunately, I don't have the notes that I wrote, so I don't even remember what we talked about. But that's basically, in a nutshell, what I meant.
Yeah, I think just to get started with how I view the organization itself, and I will say organizations because of USArk Florida as well. That's the one that I'm more close to, because of course I'm in Florida. That's the one that I pay attention the most to.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those organizations, in theory, are great. The thought of them are great because they're defending the rights of us, the people that keep animals, right? Like right now, I am a zookeeper. I take care of crocodiles, alligators. I take care of 2 berms as well, venomous snakes. Like I work with everything the laws can affect. I'm also doing social media now for reptile stores throughout the state or whatever. I'm doing I'm in here. I am in here. So some people think that I'm not. I don't really like the industry. I just don't like the old views of the industry. And I think the organization has the power to change the old ways of the industry, but they don't use the power to do so. So, for example, we keep talking about the laws that can affect us, right? The laws that can come in and take the animals away or not allow us to do certain things with the animals. Well, I think that before the laws are even thought of, there are things that us within the industry are doing that cause that thought to happen. For example, this is something that I don't like from USArk or USArk Florida. Right now, St. Augustine, there was a neighborhood and people were finding ball pythons outside. Within 2 weeks, over 20 ball pythons, right? Under cars in their yard. They made a huge deal out of it. Like they're like, oh, this neighborhood is infested with pythons now. It's like how they made it seem, right? I told USArk Florida, I said, hey, are we going to talk about this? Because this is what not to do. This is how all this other shit starts. You know what they said? They said, oh, we're not talking about that because the story seems sketchy. I'm like, how the fuck does it seem sketchy? There's ball pythons outside. Do you think like FWC went out and put it out? If you think that, you better have some evidence, because if not, you're just quiet for no reason. So things like that is where I disagree. I feel like we can, instead of just going for the laws, we can also self-regulate within the industry and help the industry not have this horrible freaking look that every time we have, especially here in Florida, like everything we do is wrong. Like we have tegus outside, we have Burmese pythons outside, nidanoles, we have basilis, red-tailed boas now. There's facilities where outside of the facilities, people will find many different things like rainbow boas, white-lipped pythons, like all sorts of things outside, Nile monitors. Like It's a lot. But we keep going after the laws instead of the root of the problem, which is within the industry. That's how that's why I don't support those organizations, is because they're good on paper, but they don't go about it the right way to stop it. I feel like they're just fighting the laws, and we're going to lose that way.
Well, and I think you make a really cool point. It almost seems very reactive, where we as hobbyists, we as keepers, are sometimes creating these problems, and then the laws are coming to clean up the mess. My only argument to that would be that I think asking USArk to take on a role within the hobby of managing the ethics of keeping and managing the policing of each other, that's a huge role. That's a huge task to have an entity take on. It would be fantastic if maybe not USArk, but maybe if every state had a handful of keepers that would get together and create some type of a hobbyist ethics board where we did manage ourselves. Because I think we always say, and if you're on Facebook enough, you'll always see people making posts like, the hobby is toxic, the reptile hobby is toxic, and we need to police ourselves, and everybody says it, but everybody's coming from such a different perspective on what that means. and we all have different ideas on just even the hobby, and we're so diverse in. And I'm not even trying to open up a can of worms about racks versus cages or
Yeah.
PVC. But I'm saying that we all still have very different understanding of like what basic animal care is, what enrichment is. And so I think asking USArk to watch the laws and watch the ordinances, and then on top of that, manage the ethics of the hobby and manage each other and regulating that, I think that's a lot for. And USArk is basically like a handful of people, and so I like what you said, because I agree with you. There needs to be like a standard or like an ethic, like the AZA or the ZAA has with zoos. There's an ethic in keeping these animals.
Yep.
If the reptile hobby was able to come to some consensus on basic care requirements or basic necessities, and let's stop playing with our animals outside, and oh no, it got out of my eyesight, now it's gone. Like that even happens in Wisconsin. We have 6 sulcatas that are missing in the state of Wisconsin, where people lost their sulcatas outside. It's like, you guys, keep an eye on your sulcata when it's outside. I just think that that's asking a lot of USArk, but I agree that there should be something similar to that. So I like what you're saying, and my answer is long-winded. I just think that's a lot to ask of USArk to do. That's just that's my only say.
I think that if that is a huge thing to ask from USArk, then USArk is deemed to lose because of it. Because USArk is an organization trying to fight these laws. So are we fighting laws forever and just spend money on the laws, fighting them over and over again? And then we override them one year, and then the next year they pop back on, instead of getting at the problems that are causing those laws to happen. So in other words, USArk, because of it, will not be productive in long term.
Well, let me add one thing to this. So I'm in a unique position. I'm from New York State, and in New York State, we banned everything that just went through Florida. We did in 2005. Yep. Nobody could keep a Burmese python as a pet here locally since 2005, or retic, or any of the larger constrictors. Yep. And guess what? They still find them out in nature. There was a picture the other day of a retic that was found on the side of one of the route in Long Island, I think it was, or down close to the city. It was like 12 or 13 feet long. So the point is that people still have them. So changing laws is not necessarily going to do really a whole lot to policing what Chuckey was talking about. I also agree with Bill in the fact that it's not USArk's role to be able to do that. Fighting anything in legislation takes a lot of money, a lot of time. And it really is something that is absolutely absurd. And when they're going off of things like the geological surveys that say Burmese pythons can survive all the way up into Washington, D.C., like that crazy crap that was going on with the Lacey Act back in the day, the entity that is USArk came in and said, hold on a second, your information is incorrect. That's not based in science. That's not based in reality of what these animals can actually conform to eventually. At the end of the day, whether you support USArk in its current form or think there needs to be a different entity that has to police people, I'm a firm believer in both sides. Unfortunately, Bill's right with the fact that everybody is still petrified of snakes. And if you have a lawmaker that's afraid of snakes and they go, I've had it happen to me. I've had mayors come up to me from the towns that I'm doing things at, and they're like, oh my God, why are you here? Well, because I'm introducing children to wildlife, man, because that's what needs to happen. People need to pay attention outside and understand these animals are really important in the ecosystem, and they're not going to do that if they're never seen. That's the first thing. I'm sorry you don't like it, but that's just the way that it works. And animals, you could see a snake outside just walking out your door. There's nothing that I'm doing illegal here. The second part of this is another problem altogether. Again, Chuckey, you are spot on. And after 25 years of this company or running a rescue here in New York State, we need to do better. I mean, that's what if you can't see it behind me because I'm giant. Same thing with Greg, but it says advancing us advances them on our logo behind us here. The whole point of that conversation, that quote and phrase, is to be able to push people into thinking a different way. And we can't move past these situations if we don't have these kinds of conversations. Again, from a unique position here in New York State, which lost their rights years ago, before anybody really even knew that these things were starting to come down the line, this was a situation which wiped out, probably 60% of the people that do educational lectures for a living here in New York State. And it becomes a loss of livelihood. And I think even though USArk may not do anything to police the behaviors, I think just getting people together and having this style of conversation, like I'm sure when Bill, when you're talking with people, when you're, explaining your lectures or your programs or what have you, you're not saying, you're ending it with things like, don't let pets go. You shouldn't be playing with your animals outside. And I think that's part of that being boots on the ground, like Greg was saying, to be able to have these conversations and put yourself into the community, whether it's directly or social media wise, whatever, because community is a very different thing at this point in the world. Yeah. Compared to me starting doing library shows 20 years ago. Now I can do a library show from my phone. So I don't even really, that's a whole other social aspect of what we're talking about. But it really is a very big, important thing to get everybody on the same page. And unfortunately, I don't really, after doing this for as long as I have, I feel like it's an almost impossible task because you have too many people that have too many opinions, and not enough of those opinions are based in reality. They're based in experience, their personal experiences. And let's be frank about a few things real quick. What I do in New York State is very different than what you do in Florida to keep your animals safe and secure and calm. And, you need air conditioning, whereas I need heat for half the year, right? So bringing us all together across the United States would be hard enough in and of itself. But then you want everybody to do it ethically and properly. And what does that look like? That's a conversation that's going to take years to be able to accomplish. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally down for it. I'm sorry.
I think that, no, that's okay. And I think it might be unrealistic to get everybody to be on the same page, but if we can at least get in the same book, then that could be a start. But I also want to highlight too, like Chuckey, your situation in Florida, I think is very unique because you right now in Florida are experiencing laws and ordinances that are a direct result of the hobbyists and the whatever issues are going on in the hobby, where I don't have that same perspective in Wisconsin. I don't have invasive leopard geckos, by Lake Michigan because a bunch of people let their leopard geckos out. What we are dealing with in Wisconsin, and I'll try to be as summarizing as I can. The state of Illinois the whole state of Illinois has rules and laws and ordinances for the entire state. So wherever you live in the state of Illinois, it's the same ordinance. In Wisconsin, we joke that it's the Wild West because every county and every city you live in will have a different ordinance. And so where I live in Kenosha, I don't have restrictions on what reptiles I can keep. But if I move to Racine, I'm not allowed to have venomous, I'm not allowed to have crocodilians, and I think I'm not allowed to have snakes over 6 feet. There are other cities in Wisconsin where you're not allowed to have a snake that constricts its prey. And they don't care if it's a 12-inch hatchling corn snake or you're not allowed to have constrictors. And so every village is really different. And it really shows that a lot of these cities don't really understand reptiles. There was one ordinance where you're not allowed to have an animal, I forgot what city it was. You're not allowed to have a reptile that is too big to fit in a bathtub. So your green iguana is not allowed because with its tail, it's coming out of the bathtub. But your 12-foot retic that's coiled up, what a weird standard to decide for being able to keep a pet or not. And that's where I see the benefit of USArk, where it just takes some education and begging the circumstance that the people are actually going to listen to you when you provide that education on realistically these animals and what their needs are. So my circumstances in Wisconsin are so profoundly different, but I agree with you. In Florida, you guys are chasing your own tails. If USArk is reactively fighting these laws that are being created because of the invasive animals that, we talk about Hurricane Andrew that let the berms go in 95, but we know it's more than that. There was a recent invasive tegu thing going on, and And I only know the tip of the iceberg of what's going on in Florida, man. I don't know half of it.
I got
So,
more. So I agree with you. I have a whole different experience, and I think honestly, this is an opinion, of course.
yes.
I think like because of my state, everybody else around gets affected because of us,
Yeah.
because of the state, and because of the keepers here. And this is where we should really hold people accountable. Now, with like the thing with the berms, for example, you just mentioned Hurricane Andrew. If you look into it, berms were found 10 years before Hurricane Andrew. That is just an excuse we throw around.
Yes, they were.
Right? That is an excuse we throw out as an industry. It's not a hurricane, it's people. 10 years before the hurricane, iguanas were here way before that. There's spiny-tailed iguana, green iguana. We have spectacled caiman. We'll have all the things in reptiles too. We have macaws. We have lionfish, Muscovy ducks. We have capybara, a little population of them, Nile monitors. Like, there is so much in this shit. Like, it's insane. And not because of the reptile industry, but because of the pet trade itself.
Right.
Because that's how people down here deal with things. And I'm telling you right now, Central Florida, where I'm at, I'm in Orlando, very chill. Like, not much. The most invasive you'll see is like brown and Knowles, whatever. South Florida, on the other hand, wild. But that people throw the excuse of, oh no, they just can't tolerate the cold, which for a lot of reptiles is bullshit. Here in Orlando, you can find panther chameleons, which are not supposed to withstand cold temperatures, right? Tegus are found near Tampa as well. Like, all of those things came through the pet trade, and a lot of times those people, like I did a podcast with Daniel Parker from USArk Florida, and he was trying to seem like, oh, green iguanas is not confirmed that it came through the pet trade. It could have been swimming. I'm like, motherfucker. It could have been plants. It could have been all these things. But then somehow they're missing in certain islands of the Caribbean. But somehow they all made it here. Like, no, it just doesn't work like that. Each island has its own subspecies as it is on top of that. And then another view that I have. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I moved here when I was like about 13 years old. And then I didn't go for many, many years. I just went back in May. And what I saw was crazy. Like, it's over there. They're not very focused on biodiversity just yet. It's starting to grow now. But you know what's invasive there? Reticulated pythons. You know what else is invasive? Red-tailed boas. Tons of birds. Like, it's just over and over again. What is it? DMX Exotics. Where was he? He was somewhere in Indonesia. He was on an island, and there's invasive species there too. And it's like, oh, this is a trend from this entire group of millions of people that we have started. That's why I think the only solution would be to control or have a way to teach people how to do this correctly. And I am very big on wildlife as well. That's why I cannot support USArk, because they say they go by science and conservation, but when it comes down to it, if whatever news comes out does not benefit USArk in the industry, they do not talk about it. I don't like that, because I'm very big on our native wildlife, especially here in Florida. We have reptiles here that people don't even know exist, because within the industry, everybody learns what you can keep, not what is outside. And I would love for this industry to have more heart for the animals that are outside and learn and be able to find solutions. Like right now, the berms, iguanas, and all those things. You know what could have been a great solution? Imagine instead of growing or starting USArk or an organization like that, before all this bullshit was going down, we could have built a business within ourselves to remove those animals ourselves. But that didn't happen. Why? Because people were ranching the animals instead. You put a whole bunch of chameleons in these bushes, they have babies, we can pick them up and sell them at shows. So people are like, oh, why don't we try that with tegus? Why don't we try that with this, that? Yeah. And everybody just went crazy about it. Now, here we are, generations after, one generation after, getting after it.
So
that's an issue that's not going to be fixed quickly, because that's a problem that, like you said, it's people.
Yeah.
So speaking of the conservation, I looked this up before. I have it up again, but USArk has a page for, titled conservation. And they talk about they don't talk about like actual conservation, like what is conservation? And it's not breeding something so that the species doesn't disappear from Earth.
That's not conservation.
That's not conservation. Conservation is protecting the Earth from those species, so those species don't disappear.
Yep.
So that's the thing that really upsets me about that.
We like to call that preservation instead, because there's not conservation.
Yeah, and again, I'm not. This is where I'm not familiar with the USArk website. Unfortunately, I wish I was. I would have had more time to prepare.
No, it's okay.
Again, my only rebuttal is that I think for whatever's happened, I think a lot of the issues we're talking about, and that you're dealing with, Chuck, are like they go way above and beyond the scope of like almost even the reptile hobby, and it's almost like we contributed to this issue that's way too big for us to clean up now. And I think the pet trade is responsible for a lot of it. There's other, again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the iguana migration all over the world has to do with like food trade and stuff too, right? They're jumping on boats for
that is one
theory and stuff like that. Like it's not just one reason why.
So yeah, that is one of the theories. So we also have anoles in Florida, and a lot of those are through the not food exactly, but plants. So in general,
for many, many years, this has been a scapegoat because it can be attributed to both. Like you have the brown tree snake in Guam, which was definitely not a pet and has completely destroyed the ecosystem of Guam. And hopefully they never make it to Hawaii, of course. But this is a fundamental human problem. And when the problem was really hitting home in Australia said, nope, that's it. We're done. We're not importing. We're not exporting. We closed everything. And I don't think that massive response would be a good thing right now in our industry. But I also don't think that maybe stopping the importation of some of these or exportation of some of these from certain countries or figuring out a better way to go through customs to eliminate that potential risk of all of those other animals becomes a serious thing. And I don't think that, not to stray off the topic of USArk, but I don't think that's a USArk thing. I think that's we need to figure out how to really police that and really do it correctly. I mean,
that's like I feel like it's not only USArk, but here in Florida, it could be USArk, FWC, any higher organization should find that way. Both organizations, as a matter of fact, should find that middle ground of, okay, this is what we have to do. But if the government does not want to listen to USArk because they're the industry, that we did that for them, like we fucked it up. That's where I'm like, but we done fucked it up, and we're not doing anything to fix it. And I'm very big on wildlife, and something I brought up to Daniel Parker from USArk Florida was me and my friends from our podcast have been talking about something we call KFC, Keepers for Conservation, right? So if you think about it, hunters, they go out to animals, right? People bitch at them all the time, but how can they still do it? How are they not that affected like we are? Well, hunters give money to conservation and go, hey, I killed this animal, but I put this money into conservation so you can't touch me. So that is a great organization that we've thought of, and USArk also agrees, or USArk Florida also agrees, Daniel Parker, that organization would help quite a lot, because now the government comes at us. We don't have to defend with, like, we got lawyers. We could defend with, we are working for conservation. This is how much was given. And guess what? The government that is coming after you, in our case, FWC, is the organization for conservation. So getting rid of us gets rid of their paycheck. But who's willing to do that? I don't know. Many people are, but the main people, the big people within the industry, I don't know.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Chuckey. Like I still in the mindset that USArk has just a very focused role on dealing with the laws and ordinances. But aside from that, like I've had conversations with other people in the hobby where I wish there was more of like an ethic governing us as keepers and us as hobbyists. Like my wife Sarah runs Badgerline Reptile Rescue in Kenosha, but she created something called ARROW, the Association of Reptile Rescue Organizations or something. And so in order to be a reptile rescue that's ARROW certified, you have to meet these requirements, like an accreditation almost. And then reptile rescues that have this ARROW accreditation can get discounts with shipping. They can get discounts with Pangea if you need food or whatever. And it's a standard strictly for reptile rescues. If you're doing a reptile rescue, there are certain requirements to have this accreditation. And I wish we just had, and again, I don't think this is USArk, but maybe it could be some kind of like an accreditation. If you're a hobbyist or you're a breeder, or you have more than 6 reptiles of the same species, that there's like an accreditation where I'm going to, my cage is going to be minimum this size and the water changes are 3 times a week. Yeah. So 95% of the hobby is not going to want to do that, which is the sad part, because we all say we want what's best for the animals. We want what's best for the animals. And then when someone comes and says, hey, this is what's best for the animals, then we go, yeah, but I'm not going to do that because I've been doing it my way for 10 years and I don't want to change how I'm doing stuff. And you get into this twisted stuff. In the state of Wisconsin, I think people get mad when I say this, but I really wish the entire state of Wisconsin would adopt a very general like rule and ordinance on keeping these animals. And I wish that you were not allowed to have crocodilians unless you had a permit, and you were not allowed to have snakes over 6 feet without a permit. And I would apply and pay for those permits and come in and inspect my cage. Like, I'm wide open, and I would 100% be supportive of that. Or if the hobby got together and we created, okay, this is what we're going to call it, and every state's going to have 3 representatives, and we're going to have these standards for keeping, I would 100% be on board with that. I know we're getting sidetracked because I just feel like that's not a USArk thing. But I also, part of why I feel like that's not a USArk thing is just because when we look at USArk, it's really like a handful of people doing all of the stuff. So maybe, like you had said in the beginning, I'll finish my thought and then I'll shut up, I promise. Like, you're good. In the beginning, if you were able to create like a Connecticut chapter of USArk and focus on Connecticut, I might actually propose that to Phil when I see him in October. Like, what if every state had like their USArk representative? Like, I'm the Wisconsin rep for USArk, and Chuckey, you're the Florida rep or whatever. And then maybe having more people that are willing to be involved and willing to volunteer their time for it. Maybe there are some things that could be added onto the plate as far as ethics and policing the hobby. I would be 100% on board for that too.
Yeah, so I want to chime in here. I want to yeah, so I want to chime in on this because it goes back to my whole thing about the lack of like outreach. So in the past, I was I'm not anymore, but in the past, like 3, 4, 5, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, I was a member of the DSA, which is the Democratic Socialists of America. And what they do is, as far as organization wise, as far as outreach is, like, they are, USArk, right? Like the national branch or whatever is basically it's USArk. But then through that, I have the ability to start a chapter or to join a local chapter. And it's easier to build momentum in a specific area when there's some sort of structure in place to be able to expand in that way. And at the same time, there was also a dues. Like, so I had to pay dues, but I also had a level of control over, what happens locally with the DSA. I was able to, be a part of like a group of people to come up with our own mission statement, our own, ideas for our area, as long as they fell in line with the national level. So to have that like autonomy And that's what I'm talking about, where it's like I don't see any effort to create that. So if like that's what I am feeling I want to be a part of, then I'll have to withdraw my $40 a year and put that into something else, an effort to create something else in my area. Because I know the majority of people in this country don't have the ability to spend $40 here a year and $40 here, $20 a month here and this and that. Like, it's about what can I do? What can I put my resources in that will have the best effect for people in my area? And, so personally, I'm just not seeing that with my $40 a year. So that's, sort of what what I was getting at originally with that, where it is possible for USArk to do these things. And it doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult to create something.
I mean,
like
in the defense of an organization like USArk, you're gonna have a really hard time convincing them to put people who can do autonomous things in each individual state, because just like all of us represent a certain brand or our own personal opinions or what the case may be, fighting legislation in a federal or state level is extremely professional. You have to go about it the correct way. You can't just call people up and tell them they're a fucking idiot, although I want to half the time. You
can, but you won't get far.
But that doesn't solve the issue. And it doesn't. This is not a defense of USArk. I'm not trying to say like this is why they don't do it. There is ways that you can do it. I'm sure there are plenty of professional enough people that could be a flag holder or trumpet sounder or whatever you want to call it for that organization in local states, but they may be very shy to do that, whether it was problems possibly trying in the past or what have you. I'm just speculating at this point, but the situation still then becomes you're correcting something that doesn't change, even if you come up with that, because there's still that guy that's going to have those snakes, whether it's illegal or he's going to release them because they get too big. And if you're not toting that line and you're not really out there trying to educate, which I personally have never seen USArk at a venue personally. I'm from New York. They don't really White Plains. I think they go to, but I don't partake in White Plains because I don't really like it there. Yeah. It's one of those situations where it's not about what the money is doing. It's about people who have supported USArk Florida, and there's still a shitload of laws that came down. What happened there? Well, what happened there was there probably wasn't enough people to support that legislation change, and there were a whole bunch of scummy people pushing things through to make certain things happen anyway. In the government side, excuse me, let me specify that.
Yeah.
At the same point in time, you have news article after news article after news article and YouTube of all of these animals that are loose or lost or let go or whatever, scaring the general public. You've got 1,000,000 to 1 down there of people saying, nope, we don't want Burmese pythons in our backyard, so we're going to vote against this. And while USArk did everything that they possibly could, it was a fucking fight and a half in the wrong direction that was started 30 years ago when they first found, actually almost 40 years ago, when they found the first Burmese pythons and other invasive species out there, including iguanas, like Chuck had said earlier. So I think this conversation is very difficult to have because I think we're talking about very different things. Chuck, what was the organization that you were talking about a minute ago with your friends on your podcast?
It's called KFC, Keepers for Conservation.
Okay, so that is a fantastic idea, because that could tote the flag of all of this other important stuff and would probably be very inexpensive to run, minus the actual physical running of it for someone doing all of that. But getting that message out there of what the importance of ecological conservation is supposed to be the job of the government. Unfortunately, governments all across the United States don't have the resources to be able to do that. And they rely heavily on people like us to be able to tote that line. And specifically, you were mentioning other animals that are loose and stuff in Florida. And I know it's a really big problem down there. We have our own issues up here, but it's not creating this ecological disaster that it did in Florida. We have red-eared sliders everywhere. Well, guess where they came from? Because there's no way they came in boxes of shipped creatures or animals or whatever.
We got them too, though.
Yeah, those damn things.
You got those in Florida too.
But at the end of the day, this conversation is very, very twofold, and I'm going to be the one to say something that I really never thought I would in a group of people like you guys, but the laws that they have and these mandatory minimum requirements that they have in the European Union are something that should not be shaken a stick at. This is a situation that if we don't police ourselves, there's going to be an organization that does bring that law. They're going to bring those forced situations on people here in the United States. And it's going to be good and bad all at the same time, because one of their laws, which I don't agree in, is you can't feed a living creature to another creature. I don't believe in that. You got to feed pinkies to some snakes, especially if you're hatching them. There's no other way around it. Sometimes they only take live, and that becomes a really big conflict. If you're a really guided keeper and you want to follow the laws, then you have to listen to this law. So this is where it all becomes a really big gray area. And most of this conversation is out of USArk's hands in the direct responses, in the direct ability to change the perception of the most of the people in the United States. Because I think they're sitting on Capitol Hill, and for lack of a better use of words, I know that's not what they're not federally sitting there, yada, 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 but they're doing the work of trying to prevent like what's going on in Bill's state. Whereas what happened in your state, which sucks absolutely terribly, what happened in my state sucks absolutely terribly, and I get that. But the government has to do something at the end of the day. They can't not, because at this point, it's not like, it's not an easy thing to say, oh my goodness, we don't know what we're doing. This is crazy. And the government's just trying to do what they can, what they think they know how to do.
Yeah.
And USArk, unfortunately, is caught in the middle of that crosshairs of, well, what did you do? Or what can they do? We don't know what they're thinking. Maybe they're really sad and upset. They got all this shit went screwy for them. I don't really want to speak for anybody in either side of this fence. I just think that things have needed to change for a while. And I agree with Chuckey 100%.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that USArk is what's going to change that side of thing. But I think in the interim, having USArk as a guided professional mediary between the reptile industry and the governments of the United States. I say the governments, I mean all, state by state and everything. I think having them is better than not at the end of the day. I don't want to argue for either side personally, because that's not who I am. I am a USArk supporter only recently, because in 2005, nothing was affecting what I did. Me keeping berms, I was legal. I kept everything I wanted. However, here in New York State, they started trying to pass some legislation that was banning reptile presentations. That is the sole way that I make the existence of the rescue possible. If they stop me from traveling with my reptiles, even within New York State, I am no longer able to take in everybody's unwanted pets. So, in the direct moment of seeing that law almost being passed and coming up across their feed, I don't remember if I saw it on USArk itself or somebody who shared it or whatnot, but I then took a long look and I said, is it worth my $40 to potentially keep my livelihood? Yes. At the end of the day, yes. Yes, it is. But I understand that's not what's happening in Florida, right? You guys are kind of at the shit end of the stick. Yeah. You guys are.
I think it's fair to say that none of us have any idea what's going on in Florida. I have
bad.
two things I wanted to jump in. Like as I'm listening to our conversation, I wanted to throw in there. I sat in a like a meeting, like a town hall meeting for a village in Wisconsin who was proposing a ban on all snakes. You weren't allowed to have any snakes as pets. And this ban started, or this whole proposal started, a guy and was breeding ball pythons out of his basement, and the neighborhood like caught on and saw that he had racks being delivered and what's going on.
Hey, Bill.
Bill, you're breaking up quite a bit at the moment.
Is it? Do you want to try just going to audio, Bill?
If he can hear us.
He might not be able to. That's right, Chuck.
Can you guys hear?
You're still breaking up pretty good, Bill.
I'm out in the woods.
Yeah, I'm breaking up.
I'm gonna get to a.
That's okay.
You're good.
So yeah, I mean, you want to take a break for a second, and we won't we'll edit part of this out, Greg. I mean,
yeah, that's fine. If Chuck's all right with it too.
Yeah, you're good.
I don't want to, take his time up. So.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm sure you're a busy guy, but.
Until I just finished working, actually, I was doing social media for Imperial Reptiles today, even though they have the Daytona show.
I'm out. Yeah, I'm running an errand tonight, so I'm out in like the middle of the boonies of Illinois, and I was trying to find a place where I could park my car and finish talking to you guys, and I ended up down by like these horse farms and stuff. So,
okay.
Let me know when you guys. I could go back to what I was saying. Sorry about that.
You're pretty good now.
Yeah, it's a little like choppy.
Bill, if you turn your camera off, we might hear the audio better.
There we go. I'm gonna be back in my spot here in about 5 minutes.
Yeah,
you're good.
I started just to tell you guys a quick story that we have this proposed ban in one of our cities in Wisconsin. And I went to the board meeting, and there was the town hall meeting. There was a bunch of guys there. We all talked about how, first of all, there were no ordinances in this town. He wasn't breaking any laws. The cops came, the cops checked everything out, and they said, he's not breaking any laws. All the neighbors wanted to make a law. We went to this village board meeting for like 3 hours. And at the end of it, the head of the mayor or whatever basically said, I've been afraid of snakes since I was a kid. They scare me, and we're going to make this law. And this guy who breeds ball pythons had to either get rid of his snakes or move because this guy was afraid of snakes. And that's ridiculous. And so I just was going to share that story because I think, and maybe this is where USArk could be more communicative and share more, because I think they're doing a lot of stuff, and they're just not telling people what they're doing, or they're not showing what they're doing. And I think they're red flagging different ordinances and different proposals in different places all over the country, and they're dealing with it. And I just don't think they're like maybe advertising enough of what they're doing, and maybe they could be more open with the stuff that they're doing. And then having these conversations and listening to us talk about ethics and keeper responsibility and stuff. And while we might agree or disagree that it should be on USArk's shoulders to kind of tackle some of that, I would want to propose that herpetological societies could take some of that burden. I'm the executive director of the Madison Herp Society in Wisconsin, and our huge mission for us is helping to connect the hobbyist and the keeper and your pet animal with its role in the ecosystem and the conservation of that animal and the complexities of conservation and all that stuff. We have people who come to meetings who, oh, look, I have a leopard gecko and they're beautiful and I love them and his name is this, and they don't know what country leopard geckos are from, and they don't know what their wild habitats look like. And and conservation too, this might be a little soapbox, so I apologize, but like this is where I get kind of like frustrated, where we have places that are targeting conserving animals, but we're not putting energy to conserve the habitats that they live in. So CITES limits how many geckos can be imported, but they're not protecting the trees from being bulldozed down in their habitats. But that's aside the point. I agree. Something needs to be done, and everyone always says it in the hobby, and we always post on Facebook like, we got to do something. We got to police each other. We got to police each other. Well, let's stop posting it on Facebook and do it. Let's put it into action. Let's figure this out, because we said it on Facebook and we say it all the time. The hobby is going to implode on itself because we keep having these situations.
Yeah,
and so
I've said that a million times, and I always get hate for it. Everybody just comes at me for it. You shouldn't say that. Oh, that just brings bad light to the industry. I'm like, bro, it's the reality of this shit. This is very real, so I'm going to speak on it. And when people tell me not to speak on it, I don't give a fuck. I keep speaking on it. And it's funny because on purpose, I've been like pushing against USArk Florida, which I don't agree with them. I don't support the organization, but I knew they were coming on the podcast with me. So I started going hard so people would hate the fuck out of me. So people could see that they hated me, they unfollowed me, they didn't talk to me. Everybody's like, don't support this guy, whatever. And then out of nowhere, USArk Florida does a podcast with me, and we're just there hugging, talking to each other about these exact topics, just to show what a industry we're in. It's very one-sided instead of having these conversations. And it's something that I respect, especially about Daniel Parker. He came down and he sat down with us and had a conversation, even about me disagreeing with him while he disagreed with me. And we told stories and all these things. And I told him about KFC. He loved the idea. Most people end up loving the idea too. It's just, I don't know how to go about it, honestly. But
so I don't want to cut you off, but
Greg's frozen now.
Yeah, he froze it.
It's not me this time.
Who's frozen? I'm frozen?
You were.
Yep.
Oh, no, I was going to say,
I think I'm good now. I'm parked.
No, you're good. Yeah.
You're good, Bill. You haven't froze again.
What I was going to say is that, to Chucky's point is that, he says, but I don't know how to go about that. And I think that if you look at, not even Florida, look at the country as a whole, there's only one organization that has like the broad like reach, and the name to be able to facilitate something like that. And that's when I was giving my example about that organization that I was involved in. I implore people to do a little bit of research on that, even if you don't agree with the DSA, which I'm not even a member of them anymore, but even if you don't agree, to do a little research on what their structure, not like what they are and who they're for, but their organizational structure. And that is exactly why I think that at this point in time, there is an organization that has that ability.
I disagree with that. See,
what do you think?
I think that this starts with the people who are creating these massive social networks of other people, like, and I'm not naming specific YouTube channels and things, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people that watch certain YouTube channels all across the board. Those are the people that should be coming together and trying to push the positive situations, because they have the single most effective amount of reach of any entity in the United States and beyond. If you create something, the only way that it's going to become that prolific and become something that really does work is if these famous people are triumphantly talking about it and become look at the pet industry itself, right? You have a YouTuber talk about XYZ, 2 years later XYZ is exploding in captivity. The same thing could happen with concepts of your mind, talking about changing over rack systems. Not that I'm supporting any of those decisions, just merely making an example. You can talk about whatever you want. There's 4 of us sitting here. The 4 of us have a decent amount of people who follow them, I'm sure. Chuckey, I have not looked at your stats. I apologize for not knowing. You could be huge. I don't know, and I apologize for that.
It's up there a little bit.
We have a decent amount of people who follow us, but here we are, 2 sides of the same coins, having the same conversations and trying to push for the same exact thing, whether we support certain circumstances or not. We're all very like-minded, and we want the same situation to change within the industry. And we can talk about this all the time. And, Chuckey, you probably have a decent following. Bill, I know you have a pretty good following as well on social media. And whether or not, everyone who even sees your pages, even if you post something today, half your followers may not see it tomorrow. They may see it a month from now or 2 months from now. So the only way to beat this message into the reptile industry is to be able to start toting this fundamentally at the base level. And it's not going to be USArk, who people don't pay as much attention to because they're not updating everything. It's going to be the people who are really in everybody's ears, the famous TikTokers, the famous YouTube people, the famous people who are idolized. It's no different than when people idolized a sports team or a sports professional player in any sport. These are people that in the reptile hobby are idolized. When you go to a reptile expo and you can take a picture with somebody who's got that kind of a following, that right there shows you the power of what you wield. Use it the right way. Start telling your followers to do the right things. And we slowly change the perceptions that we're talking about here in a base level, because I don't think you're going to change it using an entity that's already designed to do something else. I don't think they can take that on. And I don't think you're going to create a new entity as easily as trying to just convince the people who have this ability to reach that many people at one time to say the same thing, right? I mean, let's draw the line for a second. Bill, you clearly support USArk, and Chuckey, you clearly don't, but you're both saying the same damn thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're fighting. It's not like you're arguing. It's not like you're taking it out on each other. It's not like, well, you're a dumbass. Nobody's name calling. Nobody's having a problem here. That's what needs to happen. And people need to see that more and more and more, that everybody can get along. I've had my battles. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. You know how many people told me I didn't know what I was doing? That's great. I'm glad you think I don't know what I'm doing. I worked with alligators for a very long time. I still have all my fingers. I worked with venomous. I still have all my fingers, and I've never had an envenomation. Like, don't tell people that they don't know what they're doing at the baseline of everything. We as a society don't really know what we're doing. Reptile medicine is in its infancy still, guys. Like what we know about these animals is changing every day. Nobody knows it all. Just take the new information and see what happens.
It would take a huge leap for everyone in the hobby to have the sense of pride and ego and humbleness all together to say, I need to change what I'm doing, or I need to, I might not be doing things the right way, or I need to learn and evolve, and I need to work together and not have it be for me as a person, but as a hobby. And I don't know how many people we're going to get to be able to do that. But I don't think we should not try. We have become our own worst enemies. I mean, if something bad happens, if someone gets bit or someone, gets in trouble or gets hurt, then that article gets shared. And then we share that article 1,000 times as a hobby. And we complain, everyone in the hobby looks bad. You're looking bad. You're looking bad. You're the one who's sharing it. If you don't want to look bad, stop sharing the same article 8,000 times.
Okay, so with that, I kind of disagree, just because I'm very big on the things that actually do happen, especially within the industry. So, for example, Morph Market posted a deli cup with like a whole bunch of crested geckos kept like crap. Some people, which now unfollow me and don't talk to me, we're talking about, you shouldn't share that. It just puts a bad light. I'm like, no, you should talk about those things, because those things are fucking real and they're happening. The only thing that I would say add is like put the name of the motherfucker that did it, but at the same time, those are that we need to talk about, right? And both of you just made me think of one person. So with people within social media, they have a huge reach. They do want to reach a lot of people. I know certain people that have tried to go that route, and the industry pushes them out. The industry doesn't on the back end. The industry goes, don't support this person because they're an asshole.
Right.
And then when I look into these people, I meet these people. I'm like, they might be an asshole, but goddamn, them enclosures are fire. Goddamn, he can take care of some animals. Like, that's what I care than like somebody being an asshole. I don't give a fuck what somebody's personality is. Let me see how you take care of your animals. I don't even have to talk to you. You're fucking great. Now with even the biting side of things, of course we know certain people get bit. Certain people got bit very recently. And those things do happen. And I feel like those conversations are to be had, and those things will happen. Especially like I work with crocodilians, I work with venomous snakes, and I get a close call, especially during the summer, like pretty freaking frequently. Like I'm like, oh, this is. But guess what? Seeing those things, I learned a lot from them. Even though people might not think you can, once I see it happening, even if it's not with me, which I have certain experiences where I wasn't in danger, but I saw other people in danger, and I go, oh, this is what they did wrong. I could also learn from that. And some people are just, hard-headed, and they go, nah, this is the way I've done it. And then shit goes south, and they go, oh, I gotta fucking grow. And I think that is something that we're gonna see very, very, very soon. And I know some of you probably knows what the fuck I'm talking about, but I think some people have tried. Some people have tried, and they get pushed out. And a lot of those people shouldn't be pushed out. For example, I'm gonna say the name just because he's my boy, Chandler. He's tried certain things within that realm, and people have pushed him out. He's another person that does not support USArk because of very similar reasons. At the beginning, he did. And then there are other influencers who do quite the opposite, but they get like glorified within the industry, and I feel really bad about that. For example, like, not that I don't hate these people. I just have certain things that I disagree with all my heart. So, Nerd, for example, they are calling out Chandler left and right because Chandler is a bad light or whatever. But then they're out here with an American alligator feeding it pizza and noodles.
Right.
That is hypocritical to me. Now, certain people go, oh, yeah, no, fuck Chandler, but Nerd is great. And it's like, no, they're pretty much doing the same thing, two different areas. Like, it's something that is probably not good for the animals themselves and can affect the industry. You're just choosing who to like and who not to like. It's exactly the same thing, if anything. So I feel like
it comes down to personal opinion and what you right.
Yeah, and in Chandler's, let's say Chandler's free handling gets bit, like that affects mostly Chandler beyond anything because he could fucking die. The other aspect, you're affecting the animal itself by feeding it something it shouldn't eat. And I care more about the animals than the people. So I feel like even those people that try to go on that route, they get pushed out because of other things outside of animals. They get pushed out of the industry because of
whether you're liked or not, or your personality, or
yeah. And I have a very strong personality. I call people by name all the freaking time. I make up names. I call people shit. Like, that's just me. That's just how I talk. And sometimes I say certain things and people take it the wrong way. It is what it is. But it's like, yeah, that is the way I am. But look at the what my points are other than that. Like, I want to do something for conservation. It's really fucking hard in Florida to do anything for conservation. It is really hard for even those big influencers to do so if the industry pushes them out once they try to go that route. Because if you get to conservation, guess what? You're going to be against a lot of things in the pet trade.
Right.
For poaching of animals to the pet trade.
Yep.
That affects the animals negatively. Like here in Florida, there's not a law to protect those native animals getting poached. Only certain ones.
Right.
I've gone to places herping out looking for snakes and somebody finds it. That little corner where I used to find snakes, you can't find anything anymore because they poached it all. Then I go to the repticons, I go by the tables, and I see what? Black racers for $10. rough green snakes, $20. The same ones that I was seeing down in the street. But they support that. I don't. That's where I'm at with the whole industry. They like to support that, but they don't want to support like conservation and all the other good things that this industry can be part of.
I mean, I definitely have seen a huge change wild caught versus captive bred in 20 years of doing this. I mean, it's triumphantly it should be celebrated how little is available. At least here in New York State. I'm not going to speak for all reptile shows, but here in New York State, there are very, very few wild caught animals available at our shows. Now, there's no specific legalities against having them wild caught on tables. I think just people as a society here, as our reptile hobby has gained momentum, people were like, oh, wild caught things die. We don't want to keep wild caught, which slowly slows that market down, at least here in New York. People may not take things from Florida to bring up here. They may go to, pardon the expression, Bill, but Wisconsin or some other place in general to be able to be sold. Now, even like I have a volunteer who does a lot of the White Plains shows, and she walks around the whole time and she looks at a lot of the different tables, and she'll say, like, this guy looks like he knows what he's doing. This guy's talking well. He's talking about the animals first and so on and so forth. And, I think reptile shows may not be the best place for people to get their first animal.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with why people don't sell that in inexpensive wild caught stuff up here as well. It becomes a non-financial gain. The second you pull that financial gain out from under an animal, a species, nobody poaches it because nobody needs them anymore. So
for the most part, Florida is different. Florida, everything, and don't get me wrong, like I work for shops that do have wild caught, and I think sometimes like they're already here, so the animal should go somewhere where it's more than likely going to survive, not just some little motherfucker that comes in with $20 trying to get it like it used to be. I feel like I can't talk for animals that are walk out in other countries because I don't see those. But here, native animals, I see the effects of it. I've seen people go to like random reptile shops with a bin full of water snakes, out of all things, very common snakes. But I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, bro? Like, you couldn't just look at the animal outside having a good time and just let it go. It's all about money. And I usually try to I usually say that it's like a drug, right? The drug makes you feel good, keep doing it. So the animals are making you feel good and get money, so you keep doing it. There is not a stop. There is not a limit. And people just go overboard with it. And whenever, like Morph Market, for example, whenever they were like, okay, we need to minimize walkout. We need to point out what's walkout, what isn't, because we need to tell people what they are, and they need to go to the right places. That motherfucker got a lot of pushback. I'm like, what the fuck? That was a great fucking move. Mind you, the motherfucker sometimes that I don't think that's one of them. Like, like it was a good move because it affects, because we tried to say that, the pet trade is for conservation. I keep animals for conservation, which is all bullshit. It's preservation at most, if that. But whenever you look into specific animals, what are the things that are affecting them in the wild? Destruction of habitat and poaching. Usually, those are the top two. And I'm not even saying like the pet trade within the U.S. I'm talking about the world.
Right.
I'm talking about China has one of the biggest exports or whatever the fuck for reptiles and things like that. Like, I'm talking about the world and as the industry that is throughout the world. Those are the effects we have. And I feel like every time somebody tries to come up and say something about it, they get shut down.
That's a very good point. I mean, a lot of people don't talk about, I was floored probably 6-8 months ago. We did a local reptile show, and somebody didn't know the term CBB on a dish, like a leopard gecko or whatever. And I was like, it means captive bred baby. But what else is that? Well, WC means wild caught. It means the animal was taken from the wild. Captive bred baby is something that was produced here in the United States, typically. And the person, was like in shock that animals are taken from the wild, and they were young, not like that, But at the same point in time, if us as reptile keepers aren't teaching the next generation that there's a better way to do things, it does fall on us. And that's all four of us sitting here on this podcast, which I'm sure all four of us, after speaking with you guys for over an hour, and Bill, you a little bit longer, Greg, you a little bit longer, of course, we have similar ideals based in that fact. And I'm sure we tout that as loud as possible, or we talk about it as much as possible. My big thing in lectures is don't touch native species. It is illegal to take anything from the wild here in New York State, period. It doesn't matter whether it's a common snapping turtle or it's the wood turtle that's one of the most endangered species here in New York State. Like, it doesn't matter. You can't touch any of them. Leave the Gray's tree frogs alone. Yep. They are not to be pets. And I feel like a hypocrite myself, because when I was 8 and 10 and 12, what do you think I was doing to get myself into this hobby?
Yeah. And
I don't know how to combat that fact alone.
I see it very differently though. So illegal to do most things unless the animal's endangered or whatever. And some people tell me in fear sometimes, like, oh, like I have a friend that got some scorpions from the wild, hen scorpions and bark scorpions, and they're like, hey, I don't know if you're gonna like me, but I poached some scorpions from the wild. I'm like, yeah, but you are one person. You got a pair of scorpions and that was it. You're not going out there and collecting groups of animals over and over again multiple times a week. That there's a difference between
to sell two. Right
yeah there's a difference between the two things, because I've struggled with the same thing. Like, there are some animals, like I went to Georgia to herp, and I saw so many king snakes everywhere, and I'm like, what the fuck, we have king snakes, where are they? And I look into it, two things: habitat gone, the pet trade has taken a bunch of them. I heard of a guy recently got like 40 babies into the pet trade from the wild. So I'm like, oh shit, like that's what's happening. Both things, mind you, probably more the destruction of habitat, and they're not living in like cane fields and shit. But I'm like, I want to go out there, collect some of them myself, which makes me a hypocrite at that point, and breed the snakes and maybe release some of those babies back just for fun, which is what my friend is going to do with the scorpions. Is he got a whole bunch of babies now, and now he's going to grow them up and release them back. That way he doesn't feel like a piece of shit. And it's something that I've thought of too. I was thinking about it the other day. I want to have like every species there is in Florida native, and be able to have like figure everything out, figure how to keep every single animal. There are snakes in here. You guys can look this up. One of the snakes is called the short-tail king snake. It's only in Central Florida in a little pocket of space. And nobody knows how the fuck to keep it. Nobody knows if it lays eggs, if it has live birth. Nobody knows what exactly is the main diet, because they didn't want to eat last time they tried. It is very hard. But if you put time and effort into those things, you could figure it out and actually help conservation through that. Actually learn of these animals. Like, that's an animal, like, if you were to breed a short-tail king, you will find so much for science just by doing that. Mind you, it's illegal to collect those because, of course, low in numbers. But people don't even think of those things, or start a scientific paper on that species alone, because nobody gives a fuck. Nobody's going to put money into something they don't know or care about. So,
and I mean, I think that's a big part of reptiles in general, which we're straying very far from our main topic. But I think that's a very important thing. When you talk about reptiles in captivity, we don't know as much, period.
Yeah.
We think we know a lot, but we really don't. I mean, it always impresses me with what the general public doesn't know. How is that snake okay if it's 50, 70 degrees in here in air conditioning compared to, we're doing a lecture inside of a library, how is that king snake okay? Well, believe it or not, at night, most of the time it gets to that temperature, it doesn't find a secluded heat source at night, like it, and that same thing can be related to animals in captivity, and it changes the way that I look at this industry and the way that we teach the people who are coming into this industry. And I don't think that USArk can do that side of it. I think they're there for because they're only a handful of people, and they're not going to change the world. And they're fighting to keep it legal to own certain things, to do certain things, to be able to battle very specific legislation things that come down the pike from whatever governing body they may be talking about or dealing with at that time. And I don't think they're going to ever have the ability to really, really, really send home messages in the education space that something like your KFC would be able to do, or Bill, the local herpetological societies do, or should be doing. You know, we should push everybody into local herpetological societies. The Western Herpetological Society here in New York State is phenomenal, you know, but that's a 5-hour drive for me. I'm not going there. We were going to start a Eastern Herpetological Society till we figured out exactly how much it really does cost to run an entity like that. And none of us wanted to chip in $100 a month to get it started because we're all, you know, working middle-class families, whatever you want to call it. And all of our money is tied up doing life stuff. So it's a real big thing. And I can see where people are like, they're getting so much money, they're getting so much money, they're getting so much money, but what are they doing? And I agree with Bill. They should be more transparent with the things that they are battling, solving, stopping, fighting, or losing. Either way, doesn't matter, win or lose, but they should be talking about that side of it a lot more. And I think that would ease a lot of people's mistrust in the entity as well, because if you're talking about, if you're celebrating your victories and you're celebrating, you know, you're sharing your losses, then you get a scoreboard at that point. You know what's going on. They fought this, they won. They lost this, or they fought this, they lost. You know, at least there's some kind of accountability, which from talking to Chuckey in the beginning of this, you're very, very big on personal accountability. And I agree with that, because everybody should be accountable. And I think it would be a really good idea for USArk to come out with a lot of those wins, losses, or likewise, to show the general public and even the people who are supporting, and I don't want to say blindly because that's not fair either, but even telling the people who are supporting the entity, this is what we did today. This is what, you know, maybe not like specifically every single day, but a monthly newsletter. This came out, we stopped it in this one. You know, I see all the alerts and that's great. And I you know, that information is what needs to be shared.
A lot of that information gets shared on Facebook. It should be shared on the website, but a lot of that information gets shared on Facebook. I might just get lost in the shuffle. But and again, my go-to keeps going to, like, USArk has a very specific role within the hobby. And in our conversation about USArk tonight, we went into 19 different tangents about these problems that are so much bigger than all of us combined. But I feel like the responsibility needs to be on all of us as keepers, but on all of us working collectively as keepers and letting some of our ego go to support the hobby at the greater hobby. I don't know what the answers are. Is if it's a new organization that gets formed, if it's everyone just being personally accountable. I don't know. I don't know if there even is a right answer. Not trying to diminish any of your frustration in Florida, Chuck. I swear to God, I would be losing my mind if I lived by you too, man. Like, it's crazy out there. I think asking USArk, it's like if I had the guy came to fix my air conditioner last week, and if I said, hey, while you're here fixing my air conditioner, can you look at my dishwasher and my shower? The water's not turning on properly, and I got to get my lawnmower running. Like, no, I'm here to fix the air conditioner, bro. Like, we got to remember that that's kind of where USArk gets stuck, because it's focusing on that. You have a unique problem in Florida where you guys are creating your own, not you, but the hobbyists are creating their own problem in Florida. And that's a very unique circumstance, I think, to Florida. Although I said Texas, earlier in this podcast that we have like 6 sulcatas loose in, you know, and the Kenosha police called me last year because, hey, is this Bill, the reptile guy? There's an alligator at the corner of 61st Street and 22nd Avenue in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the other part of what is happening in Florida, Bill, I just wanted to touch on one thing that you had said, is not just the existing keepers now. This is a systemic situation that has gone on for decades. This is
Yes.
not an immediate thing.
Oh yeah.
That happened 10 years ago from the people who we're all talking to. This happened 40 years ago, and it started long before any of these people who are keeping now. And they feel like when we say things as a outside of Florida statement, like you corrected yourself, not blaming Chuckey directly, when we say things like it's your fault, they think that we mean as a keeper now, when we're referring to possibly a past tense situation where, you know, it is what it is. This is what's going on. And I just don't want to, that situation is definitely existed long before most of the people keeping reptiles in Florida are keeping right now.
Yeah.
Now, there are new things that are happening.
Yes.
Tegus are fairly recent.
Mm-hmm.
But when you see a big box pet store here in New York State selling tegus at $400, whatever they are, and they have 4 of them, and you go back 2 weeks later and they don't have any of them, I know I'm getting them. Whether they're roaming the streets of Albany, which has happened twice, or that somebody realizes they get too big, it's going to come to the rescue at some point.
Yeah.
And I know that. And here, we don't have a systemic problem of generations because guess what? It's New York. Everything freezes. We're cold for 6 months. Everything dies. Here, most reptiles can't survive our winter because we are so much hot, so much farther away from the equator. Unfortunately, in Florida, some of those non-cold tolerant species are going to find a little pocket in the swamp that's warm enough for them to exist all year because even some
or like,
just continually being released and breeding, or eventually evolution takes over and those animals can survive the cold.
And things like the tegu come from the cold. That's why they can survive.
Right.
Remain the wild. They come from places down in South America, south enough to where it gets cold. So those species can survive. Some people think that no reptile can survive, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
Some of these motherfuckers are built for it.
Next time they bring it up, just tell them to go see the garter snakes that live in Canada.
Literally that.
Yep.
But also the Burmese python is high up in the mountains in certain areas where it gets 30 degrees.
Yep.
Like it's very possible for certain species. That's why it's very hard to separate the good animals that can survive and the animals that cannot survive, and then separate the people that are doing good from the people that are doing bad if we don't regulate. That's how I've always thought of that. And then thinking about it now too, about influencers being able to push things, you're very right on that. So here in Florida, we have something called Croc Fest. So all the crocodile facilities, so AZA and non-AZA facilities come together to raise money for conservation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one influencer that went once, and it was, of course, Chandler. And when Chandler went, so many people showed up to meet Chandler.
Right.
Everybody had a fucking Chandler shirt. All that money that was for the ticket to get into that zoo was put into conservation, and he helped raise a lot of money, as well as other organizations that were there as well, all the other facilities that bring their keepers and their viewers and their reach, and that does bring in quite a lot. I just feel like that has to get the fuck out of Croc Fest and go into the main part of the industry, into everything.
Right. And if you had an entity like that and you had a group of, I mean, what's this, what is it? It's down by you in Florida. They're doing I don't want to be misquoted here. Animal something or other, Animal Con maybe.
Yes, Animal Con.
So where's all the finances being generated by that going?
What do you think?
I mean, is it going into everybody's pockets? Is that
no? So that one I'll excuse. I can't argue much, but that's all by Brian Barczyk. He has cancer right now. He has a limited time to live on paper. That is. And he's building an aquarium in Michigan. So I feel like that money is going to that, and I respect it.
But that's a good cause, right? So even still, you have all of these powerful influencers getting together. And my point was, what else? They've done it 2 or 3 years. I don't remember. I know I saw something about it this year.
One.
Yeah, this is the second time now.
This is the second time.
This year is the second one.
So if they do what Crocfest is doing, then this could be a model for a group or organization to be able to start your KFC that you were talking about, or something like that, to begin this real push for systemic change in the reptile hobby, led by the people who have direct interactions with 60% of the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. I could absolutely see that, but I feel like for that it has to be someone like Brian, somebody
Right.
that is
Right.
friendly with
Universally liked. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's people there that don't like each other. Mind you, there's like people there that specifically don't like my ass. That's why I don't go ever. And that's just down the street from me. But I don't think I would be able to do it because of people's views of me and how I carry myself. I really don't care how people think of me. So
Right.
I do the wildest, dumbest shit, and usually not with animals, but verbally, that is. I just say the dumbest shit all the time. So it has to be someone like Brian, and there's not many, there's not
Right.
many people in the industry that are liked. He's hated too, don't get me wrong, but within the industry and influencers, he comes out very well liked, and those people come together to a place because it is him. I don't think like certain people, like let's say if somebody like Jay Prehistoric Reptiles were to try and do that, he would not succeed.
It wouldn't do as well.
No, that would not succeed. So I feel like it has to be him. So someone like him has to be able to do something like that to that extent. If I try that, the people that don't like me are not going to come over and try to help the cause just because they don't like me. And that's something that happens very often.
Right. And I think that's something that Bill had hit on a while ago, was like, we have to get together and get rid of that egotistical side of it. Like, yeah, so what? We don't like this person. So what? They're still all here for the same cause. We need to talk about it. This evolved from a conversation about an entity that polices legislation here in the United States to a conversation of real deep insight and an absolute necessity of change socially throughout the hobby in general. And I think it's a great conversation. And I mean, I'm didn't expect to go this far and have this conversation, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, I appreciate the tangents we went down, because this is all stuff that needs to be discussed, and we all need to be able to discuss it without being attacked for being different or having a different view. And it really drives home how our personal experiences affect our view of the hobby. But we need to be able to recognize that other people have different experiences and respect that.
Right.
I wanted to shout out at you. You made a comment about the garter snakes in Canada. No one released garter snakes in Canada to have them live there. That's thousands of years of evolution to live there. So
right, we were talking about that in a direct sense of that's where they live. Reptiles live in places that get cold was more of the
after hundreds of thousands of years of evolving that way.
Yes.
Drop some. Tegus won't live in Canada, but tegus can survive a lot more cold than we've given them credit for.
Oh yeah, they can survive.
North Carolina, they have been found. They have been found up to North Carolina.
They are being found in North Carolina,
which is colder than I would think.
And I'm going to blame climate change for that, but I don't know if we want to talk about that tonight either.
I do. I personally want to, but we'll save that for another episode.
If you're all going to come back and have more conversations with us, which both of you are more than welcome to, we can do that.
I'm not well equipped to discuss climate change. I'm hardly equipped to discuss USArk. I'm just a USArk fanboy. That's all. No, I respect the conversation, though, and I respect the dialogue. Again, I volunteer for USArk when I'm local. When they come to our local shows, I support what they're doing, and I'm just seeing it as such a they have a niche in the hobby, and there's a greater need outside of that niche that we all need to take responsibility for. We all need to take responsibility for doing better in the hobby, for our animals and for each other. And I want to really quick, and maybe we can do this off camera, but I appreciate what you said, Chuckey. When I was talking about calling things out on social media, I wasn't talking about that. The dude that had 8 crested geckos in a deli cup deserves to be blasted, and his name should have been thrown out there. What I was kind of talking about more, and maybe I didn't word it properly, is like when something bad happens, when you'll read in the newspaper that like a 9-foot python bit like a 9-year-old kid, or like this person got attacked by this, we seem to disseminate that information so rapidly that gets spread quickly to non-reptile people, then that makes reptile people look bad to non-reptile people. But I agree with what you were saying, that there's such a huge we need to call out bad behavior, definitely, when it's bad, but we need to also respect that. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you were right for saying what you said, because I didn't mean, the guy had 8 Cresties in a deli cup. Let's call that shit out. Let's make that public. That's not appropriate. I was referring more to like when something bad happens in the news and we spread that information like wildfire, and then we complain that we look, the reptile keepers look bad, and people who don't keep reptiles as pets, they think we're all weirdos and we look bad, and then we make ourselves look bad when we share these articles that are bad. And we need to be better about how we need to, and maybe this goes back into our conversation. I'm a reptile keeper and I'm responsible for how I look, and I don't want to look like a weirdo who keeps reptiles, because that's what we've looked like forever. And if my Facebook feed is this 9-year-old kid got bit, by a snake, look at this, like I'm making us look bad by sharing that stuff. But I don't think I phrased myself properly.
You're good.
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to call out bad behavior when it happens, because that will.
I think we also
need to. Public shame could be motivating.
I think we also need to have a definitive line between what's bad behavior, what's poor husbandry, and what's a different way of doing things. I think that becomes a very important conversation as well, because you could say, me keeping this animal in this enclosure or this situation is terrible, but you may not understand that I heat the room to 78 degrees constantly. So the heat loss that you may have in a 50-degree room is very different, and you may not know all the facts. And so when people call people out online and they're trying to do that, policing that bad behavior, you're ultimately just getting into an argument and nothing even happens at all. If you go about explaining to somebody that their husbandry is a little different, and well, what are you doing? What's the whole parameter? What's everything? Tell me everything. Tell me your whole cycle. Tell me what you're doing. You learn a lot about what they're doing, and then you can critique it nicely instead of blasting them on a Facebook post because they had, I don't know, take an example, a dirty water bowl, whatever. And I think a lot of us that want to police lose sight of that, right? We always probably clean every enclosure before we take pictures.
Absolutely.
Right. So somebody else who isn't well versed with social media may not, and they may see their animal doing something cute, adorable, funny, whatever, and take that real quick picture, not realizing that there's the poop from this morning right in front of them to get then blasted by somebody on Facebook. I think we need to lose our own egos in this matter as well. I'm not saying anybody here does that. I just mean as an industry, as a hobby.
All right,
because everybody's so quick to point out what everybody else is doing wrong.
So I want to interject. I just want to say, because I know Bill has to go. That this conversation was awesome. It definitely didn't go in the way that I thought that it would go, which is totally fine. But it also brought up a lot more, and I would kind of want to have a part 2. if everybody's open to this.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like we unlocked a little bit more than what I anticipated would happen. So, but I know Bill has to go. So,
I'm sorry. I have arrived at my destination and I'm sitting in their driveway.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to wrap it up and kind of segue into the end here. So,
I want to thank.
But I would 100% do a part 2.
Okay, good. Yeah. And Chucky, I saw your thumbs up too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hey.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I want to thank both of you guys for being on. It was a really awesome conversation. Part 1 was a really awesome conversation. So stay tuned for part 2. I'll try and set that up soon. So,
I agree. Chucky, it was really good to talk to you, man. Very good to talk to you.
I'm gonna find you on Instagram if y'all have it.
I do.
Okay, I'll find you after this.
I think my name is dumb, but we'll talk after the cameras are done.
All right, so I'm going to get everything going here, but thank you guys a lot for coming on.
No problem.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks
It
so
was
much
nice
for
to
having
meet you,
me,
Chucky.
guys.
Have a good one.